Alright, seeing as the recording for the entire bit failed, I'm going to use some of the old footage. You've all seen this before. I did use a primitive sphere to make this base mesh, I guess. I didn't use anything like Maya or anything else to set up that shape, but you're going to see how it comes back to, I can't really effectively use that, and I do have to retopologize inside of ZBrush, and that is a long, tedious process, but it was kind of necessary for this, and it's my preference. You can see here I'm sculpting in details. This model, although it was only a bust, it was a high poly count bust, and I did try to focus in on the details. I didn't have any reference open for this, which probably would have been nice, but it was all from my imagination. I tried to imagine it was Spider-Man being consumed by Venom or whatever from, I remember playing the original games and whatever, and that's kind of my inspiration for this, but you're going to see here in a second. I'm going to go into Retopology and explain that there, so I'll explain that in a minute. Alright, so now we're going to be watching my Retopology process. I choose to do this inside of ZBrush mainly for the purpose that I do find it easier to do this inside of ZBrush as opposed to Maya, and it's entirely much easier just to stick inside of one program. If you can UV map retopologize and still texture it inside of one program, that's great. Why wouldn't you do it? So that was my process throughout this. As you can see, I wanted to retopologize this because you can see the dense. I used the primitive sphere for this this model, and the densest part of that, where the most topology is, would be in the nose, and that doesn't look all that good to me, so I did go about retopologizing this for just for personal preference. Being my least favorite part of this, it was sort of painful to go through and retopologize this, but in the end it did sort of work out, and I didn't record all of it. It's a long process and it's boring, but as you can see now, we're going through my projection process, and you're going to see a mistake I made. I didn't draw enough geometry to the pieces of his face that are extruded, and the eyes, you can see it, and a little bit back of it, a little bit farther back from his head. If you don't draw enough geometry to those, it's not going to work. That's sort of how projection works, but you can see I did go back and fix it. I took it off camera because it's not really fun to watch. And the mesh I got down to about 7K quads. And here I'm just poly painting. It's nothing special, but I do feel my poly painting was the best on this. You can see how it just forms well with the eyes. The variation in colors is a little bit better than what it has been in the past. I don't record all of this. I'm actually going to go back to a live bit so you can see what I did to composite all this. So we're going to go to that. Okay, so now we're at a live bit. I'm going to be showing you the raw diffuse map from after my poly painting, and then all the adjustments I made to it. So let's just close everything up here. This is straight poly paint right out of ZBrush. If I was going to be doing something like a movie quality model, I would have used the tighter specular. You can see it's very rough. Well, it's not very rough, but you can definitely see all the specular. I would have used the tighter fall off. My apologies. You can see it's kind of very evident that I used the speckle brush, and that's not really good. But I exported 3 different matte caps, and I also generated an ambient occlusion map and a cavity map from ZBrush. I'm not going to explain how to do that because it's not really necessary, but we'll just go right into this. First thing I used was I generated a gorilla map, and I like how it gives it sort of a specular sheen kind of look. Also darkens it a little bit. It also projects some detail from the cracks I put into the mesh. Here we have some more specular. It's just to give it more depth, I feel. And then we have the white matte cap, which makes it a bit brighter and also gives it some shadows for more depth. The ambient occlusion map, it didn't really do all that much. It wasn't really necessary, but I still put it on there because it took the time to generate it. Here we have the cavity, And this also gives it some depth because it darkens the cavities of this mesh. So in here you can see how it darkens it. And yeah, it portrays some more detail. Now here is I believe I used Crazy Bump to render out a oh whoops, that's a different project. I used Crazy Bump to render out an ambient occlusion map, which it did help. You can see under the eyes it's a bit darker. There is indent there. And then we have two specular maps. These are just to brighten and darken certain areas. Knowing this mesh was going to be viewed at from a top-down look, I wasn't too concerned with the UVs being literally ripped apart here. In my mesh, you can see that when it's applied to the mesh, you can see how that would be a problem. But knowing how it was going to be applied, I didn't really care all that much. And then here's our final UV map. It's a bit more significant. It's significantly better than what we started at. Let me bring this up here. We went from this to this in only a couple minutes. So that was pretty much my thought process from that. And obviously this is an amazing, like, you can see at the seams I do have glows, which is kind of not all that imperative to how I wanted for this to work out, but it did work from my view. So let's get back into the rest of this. I'm gonna go into Maya now. Alright, so we're here in Maya now, and I'm just going to be showing you the setup and I guess my render settings, because there's nothing really to show here. At first I applied a Lambert material to this, but I realized I wanted to have specular to it, so I did eventually switch to a blend material. So I know it's for metal, but it worked pretty well for this. And then looking at the scene, you can see I have two area lights set up. I have one coming from the right, which is a higher intensity than the one on the left. Although the one on the left is still the focus, I still felt this looked best. My render settings are nothing all that different. I did change for the final render. I changed it to a legacy rasterized mode, and then I wanted to have an HDRI. I could not find one to get it to work, and then that's pretty much it. I didn't change all that much after that. I rendered in 2048 by 2048, and then we have our final image here. The animal I've become. Just some Photoshop work I did after that, and here's our final image. So thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you learned something maybe, and wish me luck.